What another exciting day for GameStop. Red all day long. The very end of the day, able to push into the green. We see the short borrow rate after hours at like 22% after being at 16% towards the mid to end of the day. Start of the day at 8%. That's like, what a jump. I mean, and it's just been escalating very quickly. Well, who knows what it's going to be tomorrow. Everything's heating up. Until Allen decided to buy 1,500 shares to add on to his position, and that's a board member we're talking about. That's a third board member to buy this week. I mean, just this week alone. Of course, I'm just here giving you my personal thoughts and opinions. I'm not here to provide you any financial advice, but I just have to jump right into this video. There's just so much going on today, so much going on this week, and I think tomorrow the price to watch is 150, right? Of course, let me be very clear. I'm a long-term holder. I'm invested in the company. I'm not trading it in any way. But I understand that when you are registering 9.8 million shares owned by retail investors, you have insiders buying more shares, which are registered, I would assume. I mean, how could they not be? They're for the insiders. I mean, I'm not assuming, they are. I'm sorry, they are. They're insider shares. So now we have more insider shares. We have more people DRSing. That's a smaller and smaller actual realistic free float that's out there, right? I mean, when you look at institutions and hedge fund shares, I'm not going to count those. I mean, I'm not going to truly say like, oh yeah, like those are held shares because, they're probably being loaned out. Like, they're probably the reserves to cover. Who knows, But again, not financial advice. I'm just speaking generally here, but there looks to be a 150 mark that's really important for tomorrow's options chain, being that I believe they're monthly options. There's a ton of open interest, a ton of volume. And when you go beyond 150, you see what's called a major gamma ramp, which basically means as more and more options come in the money, they hedge the calls that they sold by buying more and more shares. And that just creates more and more buying pressure. Well, there's already FOMO, already a lot of social sentiment right now. But again, I'm just holding long term. I'm just going to keep an eye on this stuff tomorrow. The short borrow rate is exciting. Looking at that as well with the insider purchase, I mean, it's just getting more and more exciting. And the options chain, why that really matters when we're talking about more DRSing, more insider buys. Now, those option chain buys to basically hedge the gamma ramp, to buying more and more shares to hedge as the more and more calls become in the money. Guess what? They're buying from a smaller pool of shares because a whole bunch of the free float is actually in computer share with a bunch of individuals who are more likely than not going to sell until we see at least like 5 or 6 figures in share price. So it really makes you think, as more and more people DRS, that float gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the game of musical chairs, more and more chairs are locked up. Chairs are locked away until all the shorting hedge funds, the music is starting to slow down, and they're like, uh-oh, there's not a lot of chairs left in this room, and we owe a lot of chairs, so we might want to take a seat. And by take a seat, I mean buy the cover. And when they start to buy the cover from that small pool, as it shrinks, as more and more insiders buy shares, as more and more individuals DRS the computer share, the free float shrinks and shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until the point it's either entirely locked. But I think before it's locked, because we talk about locking the float, again, not financial advice, thoughts and opinions here, because this is uncharted waters. I mean, I don't want you to think anything grand of this, but if we get nearer and nearer to that 75 million number being locked up, you have to think when we get down to like the single digit million shares actually available, and there are millions and millions and millions, and I really personally think so, millions and millions and millions and millions of shares out there shorted, if not a billion shorted shares that need to be covered, because they were so abusively shorted for so long, even before this whole year and a half. So I'm sorry, year and 2 months. Before that January run up, that January sneeze, even before that, it was so heavily shorted, and they've only been shorting it since. So when they have to race to start covering, it's off to the races. And when this thing goes, it will go. That's just my personal take, but I don't think it's going to be like overnight or just one and done or done in a few days. I think it's going to be several days, several weeks, several months. And again, I mean, I've said it in previous videos, as long as the company's executing here, that's all that matters. It's not if, it's when the mother of all short squeezes will occur, because if the company's executing, they're growing their revenue, they're growing their business, they're just overall improving investor sentiment and legitimizing, and less and less people can say like, oh, GameStop's a dying retailer. It's a meme stock. They just trade it for fun. I saw one article today. The fun is just getting so silly. Like, the things I'm reading, literally the articles make zero sense at this point. It just shows you how desperate. They'll put any headline out there to try and draw attention away from GameStop. I saw GameStop is probably down today because it was trading up the past couple days, because a Wall Street Bets user that got a lot of upvotes implied that GameStop had 58% upside, and it's a popular stock on the forum. Basically something just total bogus like that. Like, who would read something like that and think, oh, the stock was only up because of that guy on Reddit. Now I better go sell my shares that I've been holding this whole time. Like, what? Like, it just seems like the short sellers are grasping for straws right now. And again, I mean, I'm just laughing watching all this, but I was able to buy a lot of shares below 100 recently, so I'm very happy, and I'm just continuing to hold. That's all I'm doing. I'm just holding right now. I'm not really even going to be remotely excited until we get to 4 figures. I know that sounds crazy, but that's what I look for. So I just like the stock. Have a great day. Enjoy the ride.